I can't see anybody else also. इस पे वीडियो आ रहा है? वीडियो नहीं आ रहा। ऑडियो तो आ रहा होगा ना आपको?
वीडियो नहीं आ रहा।
हाँ, वीडियो नहीं आ रहा।
वीडियो बोलता है you can't start your video because the host has stopped it.
एग्जैक्टली ये मिस्टर आसिफ दुरानी को भी ये प्रॉब्लम आ रहा है कि जब हम वीडियो क्लिक करते हैं वो कहता है कि जी बिकॉज होस्ट हैज स्टॉप्ड, देयर इज सम कंफ्यूजन एट आवर, उसको जरा सॉर्ट आउट करें यार। ओके
So sir, you are online? Yes.
जी सर, आई कैन हियर यू बट मेरा वी आर आल्सो नॉट वीडियो कवरेज पे नहीं आ रहे।
नहीं वो तो आ जाएगा। नहीं वो इन्होंने मुझे कहा था कि if you are not available then I'll take over, but since you are there so I'll be।
अच्छा
जी
अच्छा, नो इशू सर। तो आपका भी वीडियो में वो इशू आ रहा है?
ये बिल्कुल वही आ रहा है।
So please bear with us for a minute. ये सर अभी सॉर्ट आउट कर रहे हैं हम।
अच्छा ठीक है गो अहेड।
जी थैंक यू।
अस्सलाम वालेकुम। तारिक कैसे है? पहले
ठीक है। Now it's there. Usama, now it's there. So welcome Arun sir.
Ji, assalamu alaikum ji, how are you?
Very fine.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, I will request everyone to kindly unmute themselves and if possible, if they can turn on their video cameras also, I would really appreciate that. I would especially request our Chinese colleagues, Professor Du Yu Kang and Professor Gan Ji again.
Yes, I'm here.
Oh, wonderful. Yeah. So we'll go ahead now and start the proceedings of the webinar. And since I can see nearly every speaker is with us, is joining us. So I'll go ahead and start the proceedings of the webinar. So ladies and gentlemen, welcome to today's webinar. The topic for today's webinar is implementing the second phase of China-Pakistan Economic Corridor, prospects and challenges. This is Usama Nezmani. With conclusion of the first phase of China-Pakistan Economic Corridor, Pakistan and China have formally undertaken the second phase implementation of the CPEC. What are some of the expectations on both sides from project, timeline, and operationalization ends will be the prime focus of today's webinar. To discuss on this, I have a panel of 4 speakers. Before we begin the discussion, I'm glad to introduce our panel members. Our first speaker is Ambassador Nagman Hashmi. Ambassador Nagman is Pakistan's former ambassador to China, Ireland, European Union, Belgium, and Luxembourg. Ambassador Nagmana has also served as Deputy Head of Mission in China, Denmark, and Indonesia. At the Foreign Office of Pakistan, she served in different roles, including Director General Policy Planning, Public Diplomacy, and at OIC. Ambassador Nagmana Hashmi is a polyglot with fluency in French and German. Ambassador Nagmana will speak on projections of CPEC's second phase and overview. Our second speaker is Associate Professor Dr. Gan Jegan. Dr. Jegan is the Executive Director, Pakistan Studies Center at the Institute of International Studies at Fudan University. Member Arms Control Program, Center for American Studies, again at Fudan University. He has been a visiting scholar at SAIS Johns Hopkins University and an academic visitor at St. Anthony's College, University of Oxford. He has served as the second secretary at the Embassy of China in Islamabad. Dr. Gan Jegan will speak on identification of suitable industries and transfer of technology for special economic zones. Our third speaker is Mr. Harun Sharif. Mr. Harun Sharif served as the Minister of State and Chairman of Pakistan's Board of Investment in 2018 till 2019. He was Pakistan's lead representative in the Joint Cooperation Committee of China-Pakistan Economic Corridor. He worked as the regional advisor to the World Bank Group for promoting economic cooperation in South and Central Asia. Mr. Harun Sharif will speak on the topic exploring mechanisms for enhancing industrial collaboration between Pakistan and China. Our last and fourth speaker is going to be Professor Dr. Du Yukang. Professor Dr. Du Yukang currently is Director of Pakistan Study Center and Founding Director of Center for South Asian Studies in Fudan University. Previously, he served at the Shanghai Institute for International Studies as a research fellow and then joined the Chinese Embassy in Islamabad as First Secretary Political until 2005, as well as Deputy Head of Political Section of the Chinese Embassy in New Delhi between 2008 and 2010. He's also Executive Council member of Chinese Association for South China Studies, Council member of China-Pakistan Friendship Association, and consulting expert of China Center for South Asian Studies at the Sichuan University. Professor Du Yukang will speak on creating conducive environment for attracting Chinese business community for SEZs, a way forward. With this round of introduction, I now request Acting President IPRI, Brigadier Rashid Wali Janjua, for the welcome address. Over to you, Brigadier Saab.
Thank you very much, Osama. Ambassador Nagmana, Professor Zhang Jegin, Professor Du Yukang, and Mr. Harun Sharif, I extend a very warm welcome to all distinguished panelists on behalf of Islamabad Policy Research Institute. Today's webinar is a very important webinar, and it is discussing an issue which is close to all Pakistani hearts. The CPEC, which is deemed as a game changer for Pakistan to usher in an era of prosperity through connectivity, infrastructure development, and development of special economic zones. It is expected to lead to an industrial renaissance, as well as integrating Pakistan with the global supply chain by way of enhanced trade and commerce. And that can only happen if we leverage our locational advantage, as well as create a very good and enabling investment environment for our Chinese friends and other investors also who wish to plug in with CPEC in especially its second phase, which is special economic zones and their development. We all know that the first phase has gone pretty well, where there were some investments in energy projects, some IPPs. They have come up very well with the traditional Chinese efficiency and meeting of the deadlines. Most of the projects are on time. Then connectivity wise, the roads and the hinterland connectivity with Gwadar, that has improved manifold. There are still some projects like ML1 and oil pipeline projects, which I think it's a matter of time only that we pull all stops to get them going. And those would complement the development of the special economic zones ideally. Then Pakistan, because of the improved situation in Afghanistan, Pakistan hopes to create a linkage with the Middle East through Tirmiz, Jalalabad and Peshawar railway corridor. When that happens, China-Pak economic corridor and our linkage with the Central Asia can become a very good integrative instrument for industrial commerce and economic growth, bringing Afghanistan, Central Asia, China, Pakistan into a symbiotic relationship. Now, we all know that each one of the distinguished panelists is an expert in his own field, and we look forward to a very interesting discourse, especially the importance of the special economic zones and what are some of the impediments that might slow down or create some kind of hindrances. Those also need to be pointed out, and more importantly, its significance for the overall CPEC's development as an instrument of progress for the whole region. I think this would be the whoop and wharf of our discussion, and I'm looking forward to a very absorbing discussion by the distinguished panelists. So over to you, Usama, to commence the proceedings with the first speaker.
Thank you so much, Brigadier Rashid Ali Janjua. I will now turn to our first speaker, Ambassador Nagbana, to help unpack on what is being expected out of the CPEC's second phase. Over to you, Ambassador Nagbana, and I will just drop a brief request to all the panelists to kindly keep track of their time so as to finish your presentations on time so that we can accommodate as many question and answer session during the Q&A and the discussion session. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Usama. And Assalamu alaikum, ni hao, and very good morning to all our distinguished panelists. I'm really honored to be a part of this webinar. Thank you, IPRI, for inviting me. And I'm very humbled to see that I am one of the panelists with such distinguished speakers from both Pakistan and China. So I will keep my comments very, very brief because we have the experts here. So I will only make my comments from the perspective of being there in China, both at the time when the concept was being conceived and now when the first phase was over and we were entering the second phase. Now, as we know, that inspired by President Xi's concept of regional connectivity and people-centered development model, the CPEC is a very, very essential and important part of the Belt and Road Initiative. The concept of was to connect Pakistan and China through a network of roads, railways, oil and gas pipelines, fiber optic connectivity, improving people-to-people contact, and making it into a health corridor, a cultural corridor, a knowledge corridor. And it was conceived in two phases right from the beginning. And here I would like to mention that the concept of connectivity between Pakistan and China has been in the works for a very long time. I think that the concept started when we decided to build the Karakoram Highway. That was the first phase of connectivity, because naturally building the Karakoram Highway, the idea at that time also was to take it across Pakistan. And I think the second and very important phase of this connectivity happened in 2001 when Premier Jurongji came to Pakistan, and during that visit he went to Gwadar and he selected the site where now the port is functional. And the third phase, in my opinion, was when we decided to upgrade the Karakoram Highway, make it into an all-weather road that would then be able to take heavy traffic and facilitate trade. At that time, it was again in 2004 and 5, decided to lay the fiber optic connectivity, which has been done. So that this concept of development and this concept of joining Pakistan with China, and then sort of taking our economic development forward, linking it to the development of China's western provinces, as I said, has been in the works for a while. At that time also, because I happened to be there and I was the deputy head of mission, I very clearly remember that the original concept of this corridor was that we'd have the corridor, and along with the corridor, there would be the industrial zones. They were not called the special economic zones, but they were called the industrial zones. And I still feel that that's a better nomenclature for them, because SEZs have a very different ecosystem to them. Like Shenzhen is in special economic zone, but I really feel that these are special industrial zones or special economic zones have a larger concept to them. But anyway, the concept was that the connectivity and the industrial zones would be sort of developed together. Now, for many political reasons and economic and financial reasons, this was really not put into practice. And it was only when Premier Li Keqiang came to Pakistan that he signed the MOU, and then later when President Xi came in 2015, we had the development package and CPEC was launched. And now, as you very rightly said, that the first phase of CPEC is over. The first phase was also sort of formulated or developed according to what the requirements and the wishes of the government of Pakistan were and what our priorities were. And our priorities at that time, of course, was to ensure the security of our energy supply, because without energy, as you know, at that time, our industries were not working. They were barely functioning at 40%. Our exports were going down. We were experiencing 17, 18 hours of load shedding, and of course, the roads and the bridges and the other infrastructure that was required. Now, with all the various controversies involved, we have, alhamdulillah, successfully completed the first phase and have now successfully entered the second phase. Here, I would also like to point out that my own concept was that we knew that after the completion of the first phase, the second phase would start. So the idea was to start developing these special industrial zones or special economic zones along with the development of the first phase. The concept was that as soon as the first phase is over, the economic zones would be ready, so that at the completion of the first phase, our Chinese companies and Chinese friends could come, and we would be able to offer them facilities for plug and play. But because of our economic situation and other political reasons, we were really not able to focus that much to ensure that these zones were there, because it was never planned that the Chinese or other investors would come and look for land and get the electricity and water and other facilities connections done. So I think we went a little bit wrong on that. We started the development late. But thank God we are now looking at least 3 of these special economic zones coming up, with Rashatai already having been inaugurated. Now there is absolutely no two opinions about the fact that connectivity and these special economic zones or special industrial zones are excellent vehicles for the socio-economic development of the country where these are located. Naturally, we all know, I don't need to go through the details, but we know that this will sort of bring employment to the country. The first phase has already led to 75,000 employments along the corridor. It has also led to the establishment of and development of areas that are around the main corridor, especially establishment of schools, health facilities, and other facilities that go with it. So naturally, with the establishment of the economic zones, the special economic zones, first benefit, of course, would be the industrialization of the country. We don't have to go into the debate and the history of why we were not able to industrialize Pakistan the way we were going till 79. You all know about it, but we missed in a big way compared to our other South Asian nations on industrialization. So this is a very big opportunity for Pakistan to benefit from China's policy of relocating its industry here in Pakistan. They have also done it in several other South Asian countries, and those are benefiting from it in terms of their production capacity, in terms of the diversification of the trade, in commerce, in connection with the increase sort of diversification of products and increase in trade. We have seen that it has reduced unemployment in those areas and have lifted the entire socio-economic scenario of those Southeast Asian countries. So there are absolutely no two opinions that with the development of these special economic zones, not only the areas where they are located, but the entire country will benefit. Now, in order for these special economic zones to deliver, to sort of come up to the expectation and do all these things that we are expecting them to be accomplishing, there are certain prerequisites. The first is that it has to be properly planned, and it has to be properly administered and executed. Because poorly planned SEZs or poorly planned industrial zones will only attract low quality investors or low quality industry. Therefore, it is extremely important that these zones are well planned. Secondly, it is also very important that they are placed at a convenient location. Now, most of these special economic zones we see are close to the coastal areas or the coastal cities, because the logistics are easier. That is why we were hoping that the first economic zone that would be developed would be Dhabiji, because it is located near Karachi, and it has all the facilities. It has the skilled labor available. It does not have a language issue. It does not have the connectivity issue that you require for exports. But the government decided to give priority to Rashakai. No problem. Rashakai has come up quite well, but it is not really a fully operational yet. But some industries have started working there. Now, to start an economic zone, you also have to realize that they cannot survive on their own and in isolation. They have to have a certain infrastructure which is around the economic zones, and that is where the responsibility of the host government comes in, because the investors who are coming into these economic zones, because of the economy of scales and or scale limitations, they cannot be expected to be building roads. They cannot be expected of building hospitals and schools and other infrastructure that is required for sustaining. Because if you don't have that infrastructure around these special economic zones, then you do not attract professional labor to come into those zones. So those facilities have to be around. That way, I think both Dhabiji or Allama Iqbal and this Rashakai are pretty well located. Secondly, the challenges we are facing here, again, it is one of the prerequisites that the facilities or the incentives that are being offered in these special economic zones are in line across the country. It is not possible to have one concessions being given by the central government and other set of incentives being provided by the provinces. So there has got to be across the board same kind of incentives so that it does not confuse the investor. That way, then if the benefits are the same, if the incentives are the same, the investors have a choice of selecting where they want to go. Similarly, they must have a uniform kind of backward and forward connectivity with the rest of the country, because without that, again, there are going to be difficulties and problems. Because these special economic zones or these industrial zones also act as laboratories to try out your industries, to try out your systems, so that these policies then can be at later stage extended to the rest of the country. And in that also, I think we were a little late, so we cannot blame our Chinese friends, because it took us a very long time to actually finally come up with the incentives that were required for these special economic zones. And it was only recently during the Prime Minister's visit to China that BOI and the CPEC authority were able to give them a comprehensive document that listed the various incentives which were now final and which were being offered to our Chinese friends. And I'm very hopeful that this will go a long way in sort of clearing the confusion or doubts in the minds of not only Chinese investors and those who are wishing to relocate the industry, but also the third country investors that want to come and be part of the economic zones. And similarly, the facilities that are provided in Rashakai are quite okay. But similar facilities need to be provided so that when the investors come, they have internet, they have what do you call it, water connection, electricity connection, gas connection, so that they just come. And in fact, the original idea was that the gray structures for the businesses would also be made so that they could come and set up their industry there. So there are still a lot of challenges that are left that we need to, on our end, sort out. But I think the beginning is there, and as we go along, hopefully things will improve further, and we will be able to attract more and more investment. Now there is, I think Mr. Harun Sharif will talk about it a lot. I think one of our biggest challenges is that we really have not made a very detailed study of what are the industries that we would like to establish here. Manufacturing, what type of manufacturing, which sector is it that we would like to sort of attract more. For example, if we compare ourselves to Bangladesh, Bangladesh is very strong with textiles, and they were very successfully able to set up special economic zones for textile and attract foreign investment and relocation of industry to those zones, and you now see that they've surpassed us in our textile exports. So we need to be very, very careful, and there needs to be a consensus on what are the industries that are required, so that it doesn't happen that we have one kind of industry that's coming in, or an industry that is maybe irrelevant to our part of the world, or that is not that export oriented. So we need to be very careful on which industries we choose. And there has to be sort of a study on that. Similarly, we also need to understand, and we should have done this a very long time ago, but it's better late than never, that we link our industrial relocation development now with our academic institutions. Because if you do not have that linkage, then the graduates that come up now or 5 years down the line should be relevant to the industry that you want to develop, and not just randomly you're bringing up professionals and labor that is not sort of in tune with your development strategy. So I'm sure Mr. Harun Sharif will talk more about it. I just wanted to leave that here because he's the expert. So I think that also is extremely important that we look at it. And other thing is that if you want your economic zones, special economic zones to be successful, you may look at an incremental approach rather than start 9, 10, 12 economic zones at the same time. It is better to have a couple of them, maybe 2, 3, maximum 4, to see how they operate. What are the lessons that you learn? What are the mistakes that you have made? So that one success then can be replicated across the country. So this, and for that, it is very, very important that you take your provinces along. So you will have to rise above your political expediencies and try and come up with the special economic zone policy, which is uniform and which is applicable to the rest of the country immediately. And third, and the last thing that I wanted to point out, that we have the mechanisms, we have the administrative setups, but there is extreme lack of data. We have no way of collecting authentic data of that analysis of performance of a particular zone or a particular industry. And I think we need to develop that, because if you develop that, let's say first with the Rashakai and then replicate everywhere, that will be fruitful. But if you do not have the data, and if you do not have the skills to actually evaluate how a particular economic zone is working, then it's just randomly working. And I think we are very, very weak in that sector where data collection and analysis is concerned. I will stop at this time because at this point, because the time is limited, and as I said, we have experts who will talk about it, and if required, then in the interactive session, I'll be happy to come up with a lot of points. I have a whole thesis here on the challenges and opportunities, but there are other speakers. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Ambassador Nagmana. I suppose you've raised some very valid points, and I think we'll dovetail them in our upcoming discussion. So to look forward and see CPEC's viability, which is actually centered on its source of powerhouses, which are special economic zones, in addition to the communication and energy projects, which have been covered in the first phase, what industrial sectors can go forward with investments, taking the lead from Ambassador Nagmana's point, and how could the path forward for technology transfers be arranged? To discuss this, I call on Dr. Zanji again to share his thoughts. Over to you, Doctor. Doctor, please unmute your mic.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for inviting me to give you this speech. Distinguished panelists, ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. Assalamu alaikum. My topic today is on the identification of suitable industries and the transfer of technology for SEZ. In fact, I have to say that I'm not a specialist on this topic, but I have ever traveled to different SEZ in Pakistan, in Punjab, in Sindh, in Karachi, and also some other places. And also, when I was in China, I also have traveled to accompany some Pakistan friends to some local industrial park in Shanghai, in Suzhou, and so on. So I think that I have a little some perspectives for my personal experience on this topic. So my presentation will divide into 3 parts. So first one, we needed to say how to identify the suitable industries and technology for Pakistan SEZ. So the second one part of my presentation will be on the exact suitable industries and technology transform for the Pakistan SEZs. And the third part, I will talk a little about how to promote the industrial cooperation in the SEZ for between China and Pakistan. First of all, we needed to say that when we talk about the industrial cooperation under CPEC, we think that we still have to do this on the basis of the first phase of CPEC. In the first phase, we know that we have 1+4 cooperative scheme for CPEC. It's infrastructure, energy, water port, and industrial cooperation. I think that except the infrastructure cooperation, I think that the energy issue, the water port, and the industrial cooperation, all of the 3 major pillars of the first CPEC, first phase of the CPEC, is also relating to the industrial cooperation. So we needed to continue this the cooperation, industrial cooperation on this basement. This first I want to say that is that when we talk about the SEZ cooperation today, we need to talk about it on the second phase, in the second phase of CPEC. From China side, we think that when we talk about the second phase of CPEC, it's mainly from the economic policy from China's domestic policy. When we talk about our economic development today, we often talk about the new development philosophy of Chinese Communist Party. Is focused on the concept of innovative, coordinated, green, open, and shared development. Under that, we promote the concept of high development, high quality development. So when it comes to the CPEC development, CPEC cooperation and BRI cooperation, from China side, we also talk about the new phase is the high quality development of BRI and CPEC. So under this circumstance where we can say, look, what will happen? What will happen for the China-Pakistan industry cooperation in the SEZ like that? So this is the second thinking I think that we need to talk. And then the third one, I think is that for the industrial cooperation between China and Pakistan on the CPEC in the SEZ. So we needed to considering the reality of Pakistan itself. So I think that Pakistan as a developing countries, Pakistan should use their later development advantage, learn from the success of China, and also draw the lessons from China to promote its industrialization, to develop its industries. So these 3 factors is that what I thinking about how to identify the suitable industries and transfer of technology for SEZs. So the second part of my presentation will focus on the exact industries and the technology transfer here I want to see for Pakistan SEZs. So I will also divide to 3 points. I think that when we talk about the industries, we often talk about the first industry, second industry, and the third industry. So I will explain here one by one. On the first industry, we know is agriculture. So for the agriculture cooperation, we think China and Pakistan has done some in this area, but we have a lot of we have huge potential in this area for the cooperation. We know that when we talk about agriculture today, it's not just on the traditional agriculture. We often talk about the modern agriculture, comprehensive agriculture. Even we talk about the now. It's a hot topic here in China. We often talk about the intelligent, smart agriculture. So, in fact, I think that agriculture itself also developed very fast. So, for Pakistan, I think that it also needed to be adapted to the trend of their development from the traditional agriculture to the modern agriculture today. So I think that in this side, I think that China can do a lot for Pakistan to support our strategic partnership. So we went till now. I think that we have already have some cooperation in SEZ, in Pakistan SEZ for this. For example, the China's company like the Zhenbang Agriculture company, they have invested in their I think that is in the IPRI special economic zone in Islamabad. We know that Punjab has lots of huge potential for its agriculture development. So in this area, we have already have companies to come here to do something. And also in last year, we have a conference in Shanghai that focused on the agricultural cooperation between China and Pakistan under CPEC and CPEC. We also see lots of Chinese agriculture companies, and even some companies is focused on the digital agriculture, and also want to go abroad and to Pakistan to have some cooperation there. So we need to keep in mind that for the agriculture cooperation between China and Pakistan, it will focus more on the modern agriculture. So this is the first industry. For the second industry, I think we have lots of area to cooperate. I just have a list for this. I think the first one I think I want to talk about here is the energy sector. We know that in the first phase of CPEC, energy cooperation is a very important part of our cooperation CPEC project. For our CPEC project, it's almost, I think that China invests half of their fundings for this project in the sector area in the energy sector. But here, when we talk about the energy in the second phase, perhaps we focus more on the not only on the electrical energy in the first phase. Perhaps we will focus more on the one is that clean energy, and the second I think is that we will need to also focus on the power transmission and distribution in Pakistan. This is also very important for the clean energy, and for we often talk about also the new energy. For this area, I think that China has huge technology resource, and also we have lots of companies focused on this sector. So we should keep in mind that when we talk about our CPEC, many analysts, even some criticizers, focus on criticize that China is to transfer its excessive production capability to Pakistan. But we needn't. I think that when we talk about the excessive production capacity, I think it's not just equal to the outdated production capacity, but also there are also the advanced production capacity. So, and in this area, I think that, for example, for the PV industry, that is the photovoltaic industry in China, we have lots of companies on this, and we should transfer this knowledge, technology, and some capacity to abroad. So I think that in this area, we can have lots of cooperation potential for Pakistan and China. So not only on this, for the energy, clean energy, I think not only in this area, but we also have the wind energy, water energy, and the nuclear energy cooperation in the future. So this is a huge sector that China and Pakistan can cooperate. So the second, I think that we can't forget the mining industry. Why I talk about the mining industry here for the second point, I think is that, for Pakistan, I think that for the industrialization, I think it's very important. You must have your mineral resources. But I think that Pakistan is lack of the foreign exchange. So the Pakistan needs to develop its own mining industry. So that means Pakistan can save its foreign exchange for other the development necessary. I think the development needs. I think this is very important. We have already, like for example, MCC have their SADC copper gold project in Balochistan for long time. I think this is very important to also. And the third point I want to talk about, focus on, is that the manufacturing industry. This is very important for Pakistan. I think that when we talk about the manufacturing industry, is a very big industry. So here, I just want to talk about that. Focus on the automotive manufacturing industry. We know Pakistan. Most of the vehicles and the automobiles for Pakistan is imported from other countries, especially from Japan. But for the vehicles in Pakistan are very, very expensive. And also we know that Pakistan is short of energy. So I think that this gives the huge, big opportunities for China to export its new clean energy vehicles and automobiles to Pakistan, and even we can build factories there. For example, we have very top clean energy vehicle companies like BYD, NIO, XPEV. I think that this kind of companies in China have produced and have sold almost half of their new energy vehicles in the past year. I think that in Pakistan, this kind of vehicles can save energy, and also is much more cheaper than their particular car. So I think that this is suitable for Pakistan market very much, and also Pakistan use its later development advantage can bypass the routes of the road of traditional car development mode. So this I think I think that China can help Pakistan. For the fourth point, I think that this is also from the experience from China. Though in China, we know that lots of people criticize that Chinese government is too dependent on its real estate industry. But in fact, the real estate industry is very important, even as in a long time as the pillar industry for Chinese development in the past, I think, 2 decades. And that means that in Pakistan, I think that we can also have such kind of cooperation in this sector, because we know in Pakistan you have also had the Pakistan Bahari town, like that. That's very, very good one. But you know, we need to build more real estate, more house, more apartment for the middle class. With the development of Pakistan economy, I think this kind of needs also is developing. In fact, I also know some Chinese real estate industry has a company has been to Pakistan to find their business opportunity. But when I talk about the real estate industry, I'm not speaking about the 5 million apartments house of Imran government. I think that is the public goods that the government is doing. So my focus is that we should build the house and apartments for the middle class of Pakistan. So on this, I think that Chinese companies can do cooperate with the Pakistan companies to develop this industry. And also perhaps we know we have a very successful model for Chinese the companies to develop the city complex. Like we have the Wanda group. We have every main city, we have Wanda plaza. So it play a very important role in the city development. I think that we can also find good places in Pakistan, for example, Lahore or Karachi, or to have this kind of pleasure to develop here there. So this is the first point. The fifth point, I think, is that we needed to focus on the future technology. That's the IT industry. Perhaps in larger concept is the digital industry. I think in this area we have already lots of cooperation, like Huawei, like China, Pakistan cross-border fiber cable project, like that. So when we talk about the fourth revolution, industry revolution, we almost always think about talk about the digital industry. So nowadays that we often said that the data is the oil of the digital economy. So in this area, I think that China and Pakistan can have a lot of cooperation to find in the right SEZ to have this. The fifth, we also talk a little about some other areas that we can cooperate in the future. Like for example, this the two areas very important. This is also relating to the livelihood of the people, like the medical industry, like the education industry. They are both very important. And besides, I will talk a little about the garment industry. We know that now. Pakistan, another country in South Asia, Bangladesh, developing very fast in the past several years. I think they focus on the garment industry, develop very fast. This is very important for them. They use this industry to earn lots of foreign exchange, and this can be the blood for Pakistan, for Bangladesh to develop other industries. I think that in Pakistan, because you have so lots of young population, I think this and traditionally in 1980s, I think that this is a strong sector in Pakistan. So nowadays we need to have more cooperation on this to develop this sector for Pakistan. So this is the main industries that I think that is suitable for China and Pakistan can cooperate in the SEZ. So the third part of my presentation, I will talk a little about my personal perspective for how to promote the industries and technology transfer for Pakistan SEZ. A little thinking about from myself. I think that here now, I think that in Pakistan, we can say we have just several kinds of SEZ. The first, I think that the first SEZ for China to cooperate with Pakistan, I think is that to some extent we can say is SEZ, but is industry park. We know that the Pakistan higher Ruba economic industry park, and since this kind of industry park, I think that if it developed well, I think that in the near future, we can also find this kind of special economic zone for Pakistan, which means a top private company as a leading company to develop an industry park, and then it will develop a economic zone for relating industries. Like this industries is, I think, is for hire is the home and the household appliance industry, and then they have lots of relating companies or relating industries to in this area. I think this is a good, successful model in the future, and that means if in the future Pakistan can have a cooperation from the top Chinese other companies, and I think that, for example, in the motorcycle, in the vehicle making sector, I think that you can also to import some automotive companies from China, and then you can develop it into a vehicle economic zone like that. This is the first kind of economic zone. And then the second, I think we have already have this, that we have already have is the Gwadar port for free zone, Rashikari SE special economic zone. This is under the two government cooperation and the Chinese state-owned company to go there to especially for the Rashikari SEZ to go there to have this new SEZ, and that they will find their Chinese companies to go there to invest there, and also to have their industry planning there. I think this is also this is what we are doing now. And as a third, I want to talk a little more. This kind of cooperation has never happened in Pakistan, but I think it is very, very important. In China, we know we have lots of industry park or SEZ like that. We in China we just we know in the first stage of our opening up and reform, we like to speak about the SEZ. But now we don't speak a lot, say a lot about SEZ. We often say that the industry park, high technology, the economic zone like that. So for this, I think China have already some very good company, which kind of company is focused on establishing the economic the industrial park. Like in Shanghai, we have the Lingang Group. This is a very big group. They have developed 16 industry park in Shanghai, and now they have go out of Shanghai to local to other provinces in Jiangsu, in Zhejiang, and now even they have been to the western province of China to develop a new industrial park. And for this company, when they develop their new industry park, I think that because they have the experience to make their plan for the industrial plan, and also to how to focus on special technology in different industry park. I think they have done a lot very successfully, and I have also accompanied your Pakistan CG in Shanghai to travel to this company, and they think that they are also interested in to have some cooperation and some to want to have to help our Pakistan friends. They even initiated the idea that perhaps we can invite Pakistan businessmen, Pakistan government official to come to this kind of to their companies to learn their experience, to train them, and to train them how to develop the industry park, to develop the SEZ. I think this kind of a model, I think, should also be imported by Pakistan. This is, I think, is very important. And the fourth, I think, kind of SEZ and should focus on the high technology economic zone. this I think that Pakistan have already thinking thought about, because you have there are lots of good universities in Islamabad, so you have already think about to do this in that. I think that in this area, China also is a very interesting to cooperate with Pakistan, because nowadays we are also try to promoting our technology and the science and technology cooperation between China and the BRI countries.
Professor Gan, I'm sorry, I have to interject you over here. If you could park some of these additional points for the discussion and Q&A session.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
I have finished my topic, my presentation.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, and apologies for this impolite interjection. So I think you've raised some very valid points in terms of, and identified some really key areas where both countries can go forward with their investments. Now, moving forward, with our next speaker, who's someone who happens to be, one of the chief proponents for ease of doing business reforms. What interventions do you think Pakistan and China can adopt to promote and explore industrial collaboration? I now request Mr. Harun Sharif to walk us through with his ideas. Over to you, Mr. Harun Sharif.
Well, thank you very much. Good afternoon and assalamu alaikum and ni hao. Extremely pleased to be invited to Islamabad Policy Research Institute dialogue with learned colleagues, familiar faces. I think a lot has been said. I will focus on actually some of the structural issues which hamper the development of industrial cooperation, because we have spoken about the micro side of it. But I would also like to give some suggestions that how to insulate these developments with the risks which Pakistan faces at the political level, also at the private sector level, so that a smooth transition can be continued. So my first point, I think we need to no industrial development or cooperation is possible without understanding the macroeconomic, situation in Pakistan. In just 2 minutes, I will try to summarize. What we have seen in past 30 years, that Pakistan's current economic base or structure has produced a GDP growth at the level of 3.75 to 3.8%. It has gone up, it has gone down, but if you look at 30 years curve, that's what is the capacity of the current economic structure. So what has happened is over the years that the portion of industry has remained pretty much the same. Agriculture has gone down a bit, whereas services have really come up as almost 60% of our economy. So we need to keep that in mind where Pakistan's economic structure stands at the moment. And I don't think expecting a very high growth without in the real sectors. For populist reasons, we have done consumption-led growth, which backfires because imports go up. And then we get into balance of payment crisis. And that's where more than 22 programs of IMF have come into bail us out. Our GDP investment to GDP ratio has remained below 15%. And if we need to move this 4% growth to 6 to 7%, we need to take it up to 20 to 25% as per our peer groups. So the industrial cooperation is directly linked to investment. And I think we need to focus because our debt to GDP is about 80%. We can't continue borrowing. So there is a clear macroeconomic imbalance at the moment to provide decent employment to almost 2 million young labor force entrants every year. And for that, we need sustained economic growth of 7% for almost 10 years. So that's where my first recommendation to our friends in China is that while China has been very kind in terms of investment flows, in terms of even giving us balance of payment support, Chinese must engage in the reform process to improve this macroeconomic structure, because that's in the benefit of both countries. Why I put this introduction is that the current dialogue, which I have been part of with China, there's very little discussion on structural reforms. And I think as a friend of Pakistan, I would urge China to learn more and engage in that, because that is the fundamental for the economy to take industrial cooperation forward. So with this backdrop, Ambassador Hashmi has very ably mentioned the history of it. So I signed the MOU on industrial cooperation in 2019, and recently Prime Minister Imran Khan and his team finalized it into a framework agreement. I will not go into details of the document. So at least now we have a paper to work on. The report mentioned by Ambassador Hashmi is this one. This one was presented to President Xi by President Imran Khan, which was prepared mostly by Mr. Khalid Mansoor and with the help of some friends. That highlights 6 sectors of priority which Pakistan has offered to China. And that is, I would name these sectors. It has textiles, particularly garments, value added. It has pharmaceutical, agriculture. It has information technology. It has furniture and automobiles also included into that. It also speaks about the industry of shoemaking and other things. So what I see the angle of this document, it is the first document. I had prepared an initial one with a little bit different focus, but this basically focuses on labor intensive, mostly industries in Pakistan, to capitalize on the labor force advantage of Pakistan. And the document highlights that Pakistan's labor force, both at the unskilled level and at the skilled level, is almost half the price of Chinese labor force. Even an IT graduate or an engineer in Pakistan costs 1/3 of the cost you pay in China. So Pakistan offers an advantage there. Also, it highlights that although the energy is now available, the cost remains at par with the Asian markets, which is about $9, which is cheaper than China at times, but still it's not a comparative advantage of Pakistan. But in terms of other advantages which Pakistan offers is the agriculture sector, where we have the raw material, and we produce about 20,000 IT graduates. So I will not go into details. This document is available to people. But now this has been set as a priority by Pakistan's Prime Minister in the last interaction with China. I would like to, Ambassador Hashmi has mentioned that Pakistan needs to do an in-depth study of what actually is the win-win for both countries in terms of industrial cooperation. This basically is a desk review, this document, of multiple documents prepared mostly by private sector. And I think that is something which, CPEC must commission with a leading economic think tank of China and some think tank in Pakistan like IPRI, to look at the real medium to long-term benefit to both countries. What are the 3 to 4 sectors which we need to pick as winners? Now, why I'm saying pick as winners is that it is very important to see that our capacity of policy making, implementation, procurement, provision of utilities is far, far lower than developed Asia. We cannot do everything. We continue making populist wish lists to do everything under the sun with China. And the reality is that we cannot. So we need to have within these sectors, and looking at the future, I think we need to have a roadmap that these are the 3 winners. And then we need to work with China to basically deviate resources and investments and incentives to these sectors. And mind you, there will be losers and there will be industries dying, which are actually, and that difficult decision Pakistan's political elite will have to take. You cannot keep everybody happy with the current macroeconomic situation and also with the current level of skills and resources and capacity. So I would like to highlight, and that's what I link to my first point. I think China and Pakistan are very good for friends. We publicly, are exemplary relationship, but some hard talk is needed between the both countries, that what kind of reforms are needed to sustain what we are talking. Without those reforms, we'll continue struggling to gain of our, ideology or what we are looking at under CPEC. Now, let me come to some of the risks and link the solutions to that. I have already highlighted macroeconomic risks. China has been putting in some money in shape of loans to support our imbalance because our exports and remittances combined basically make up almost half the payments which we need to make in terms of imports and debt payments. So we really don't have, hard currency. And I think it's time that Pakistan and China should talk about, a very serious framework of currency swaps where we do not deal in hard currencies and we actually deal in our local currencies to ease some pressure. Putting some money in budget can only help if Pakistan does very fundamental structural changes in its policy and economic framework. For instance, I would highlight a couple of structural things are dealing with our state-owned enterprises, which are loss-making. Another structural flaw is the issue of our energy sector. We make expensive energy, sell it cheaper. And as mentioned by my Chinese colleague, that's where China can actually help cleaner energy, alternate energy, cheaper energy in future, particularly linked to economic zones, because there is a pressure and the debt burden through circular debt is highlighting. There are other structural flaws I won't get into, but I'm just giving examples that as true friends, these countries need to talk on reality and reforms. At this point in time, CPEC does not speak, I'm afraid, about reforms, which are key to sustain the industrial cooperation. Second part in Pakistan is that we have a fragmented institutional structure to deal with industrial cooperation. I will give some examples like the institutions. We have Planning Commission, we have CPEC Authority, we have Board of Investment, we have Science and Technology Zone Authority, we have provincial governments, Board of Investments. All are trying to do the same, by the way. So my question is that why can't both countries look at this fragmentation and come up with one structure? Because nothing, harasses the investor more than running around different shops. So we need to consolidate because these structures have been created for two reasons. And I'll be very honest, one reason is the lack of understanding that how the modern structures have evolved. Actually, bureaucracy wants to create jobs. So they keep on coming up with new structures so that their friends and colleagues and batchmates, they can get jobs in the government structures. So I will be very honest that we need to merge these institutions and come up with one structure. And more important is that insulate that structure from politics. And it should be a technical structure like State Bank of Pakistan, because I give you examples. In Dubai, UAE, they have set up Dubai International Financial Center. Now, Dubai International Financial Center is a place where any international company comes to register. And the law of the land does not apply to that corporate zone. They have their own court. They have their own arbitration system. They have access to speed up registration. They provide access to finance. So what I'm trying to say is that our idea of specialized economic zone is a physical space. I propose creating a corporate space where investors can actually get comfort. And I had started this initiative with our Attorney General when I was in the cabinet, But unfortunately, our politics went this way that I could not stay, and then the Attorney General himself could not stay. And why I'm trying to say that it's important to insulate that structure under the parliamentary act to give it empower. And I quote an example. This booklet which I have shown was led by the Special Assistant to Prime Minister for CPEC affairs. Now he's not there. Now the question is, so we have failed to sustain the momentum because of our own fault lines within the political structure, and also, the weak institutional fragmentation. Even to Foreign Office, my advice is that for China and our selected countries who want to invest, particularly in Asia, we need to develop a cadre which understands commercial transactions, because our traditional diplomacy is based on different objectives. So we need to, all the time, the knowledge is not propriety of anybody. And we need to think about specialists who know how to do transactions, who understand the language of private sector. And for that, some compositions need to change. We have spoken about economic diplomacy by the former foreign minister, but that needs to translate into certain very clear, institutional changes. Now, on specialized economic zones, a lot has been spoken, and very rightly so. But Pakistan has three kinds of economic zones, three laws. Number one, which we know is a specialized economic zone law, which is managed, administered by Board of Investment. And the land, and half the issues are with the province, half the issues like tax incentives, electricity, gas, utilities are with the federation. So you need a very strong cooperation between the federation and provinces. We also have export processing zones. It's an old law, and under that we created, and hardly any one of those is functioning. Then we have industrial estates law under the provinces. So the way I'm speaking about consolidation of institutions, I think we need to consolidate these laws as well to basically cut down the confusion. And we need to have very clear, Pakistan's survival in this macroeconomic imbalance is on value added exports. So what the points made by my Chinese friend about technology transfer are very valid, but that technology transfer needs to translate into high value added exports. Otherwise, a country dependent on imports so much, we will continue to struggle with that imbalance, and we will never be able to manage our books well. So I think we need very clear in terms of the sectors where Chinese can come in. We are moving towards fourth industrial revolution. If you look at Vietnam or other countries, their bulk of their export income comes from technology-based exports. Now, but at the same time, there's a challenge. If you move towards technology-based exports, where do you create jobs for the unskilled labor force? So we need to work both ways, that perhaps the job creation needs to come into the local industry like construction and other things where unskilled labor force is still needed. But we need to double our export revenue. Otherwise, we will not be able to sustain the gap in the external account. The fourth point, after, I gave example of the Dubai International Financial Center. By the way, Qatar has the same arrangement, Qatar Financial Center. Now Kazakhstan is following the same route. If we wait to reform our judicial system for dispute resolution, or we wait for our bureaucrats to train and actually facilitate, then I think we are talking about good 100 to 200 years. The only answer is a technology-based corporate economic zone, which is empowered to provide all the facilities under the law. The law of CPEC authority, this facilitation business, which Board of Investment does, frankly speaking, as a former chairman, if I outsource that function to KPMG, government can actually do this function with 50 times less cost. Facilitation is one thing, giving information, connecting, talking. You need to have teeth to actually do things. And that is where Pakistan needs to look at, a corporate entity which has teeth to deliver and which is led by private sector. Unlike China, Pakistan's mostly, industry is led by private sector, and that is where, and they are family owned. I would next point actually is very critical, which is if you need industrial cooperation, where would the money come from in terms of local currency? Because when you're financing working here, you need financing. Our banks are not geared to provide. Pakistan only have commercial banks, which give short-term money for trading and other things. There is no project financing money available in local currency in Pakistan. So we need to think about setting up, a real development project financing institution by upgrading something like Pak China Investment Company, which is a very small outfit. Because if you want to do industry, you need rupee-based financing, and you need to have somebody not only providing financing, but also providing technical advice through financial and managerial skills. And that is my request to, again, China, to think about expanding the role. I have already convinced the government of Pakistan to do it, because local currency has to come in. In the beginning, it was mentioned that one needs to expand CPEC to Afghanistan and others. There is do you think the World Banks of this world are going to finance that? We need to have a local institution which understands region, and that the foundation needs to be laid. I have already mentioned, that political instability and flux will continue, and that should not stop the progress of industrial development. And that is where we need to strengthen few institutions which are actually owned by all political parties. You do not see them as extension of politics. Then basically, if we move towards Pakistan structure, I think for China, it is important to get into joint ventures, because joint ventures let you understand the markets better. The problem in Pakistan is that Pakistan's industrial structure is much smaller companies as compared to Chinese. So I would actually urge to look at a joint venture model to start with, and then you can expand eventually. That will give comfort, because I will be very candid, there's a fear among the Pakistani businessmen that Chinese are so powerful and so big, they might come and take over our industries, and our wealth creation will go down. So we need to work together in some of the ventures to give comfort. Similarly, on economic zone, I 100% agree with Ambassador Hashmi that we at the moment have 19 economic zones. We should cut it down immediately and show 2 successful economic zones. And for economic zone to be successful is not into a remote area. Remote area development needs a totally different strategy. Economic zone is like a ship. It is in the sea, which is everything is provided within that space, and it's connected to the ports and markets and skills and labor and financial markets. So it has to be like the Faisalabad one is successful because it is connected. I have my doubts about Rashakai because it's more political to put it there, because you need to be, Karachi and Lahore are hubs. We need to leverage that first, and we need a different strategy to move into smaller areas. And why not, Pakistan 60% is textile. We still don't have a textile economic zone. I just fail to understand why not. So we need to think about economic zones which can quickly enhance productivity and do that. Couple of last points. I totally support the idea of investment in knowledge, because there is very little knowledge here about the Chinese way of doing business, what's in China, what China can offer. And I think we need a technical knowledge university of China to partner with the local university and set up not a I just hate the word center for excellence. We actually need a proper technical and business school, which is basically offering program focused on China and wider Asia in Pakistan, so that people, not only managers, but the graduates can understand it better. And there are Pakistani universities keen to partner. As a matter of fact, I offer myself, if there is a Chinese university like Fudan want to come in here, we will invest money and we'll set it up. But we do need that visible intervention. These small partnerships or strategic partnerships or funding a chair, the magnitude of change which we are looking at will not really help. Final 2 points: the geopolitical risks are going to stay in Pakistan. Lots of people obviously wouldn't like Pakistan to grow above the level where we are. We need to insulate that risk by doing more and more transactions in private sector, not in the state area, because the private sector transactions are, faster, smaller, and don't come on the bigger radar. So I think our private sector of both countries need to move forward and look at reducing the geopolitical risk. And the Chinese companies coming here, like automobile, I'm totally against that sector, because that's only for the local consumption. And with the foreign exchange fragility, it will be very difficult for Chinese company to repatriate profits unless you reinvest the profits here, because the availability of dollars will only come from exports. That's where I urge initially for the first 5 years, China should look at sectors where you actually produce here, sell it outside in foreign currency, so that you mitigate that risk of local currency. And geopolitics is such, if the Chinese companies basically start exporting from Pakistan, I'm not too sure about the status of EU's GSP Plus and others, because I think the pressures will start coming on Pakistan again. Now, to sum it up, just my 3-4 recommendations, which I would repeat. Number 1 is look at macroeconomic reforms jointly and carefully and agree on a structure. B, we need financial market reforms to create capital for expansion of industry in Pakistan. D, consolidation of institution and laws and coming up with something which is insulated from the political shocks. Otherwise, it will become harder and harder for us to do it, because the momentum broken, rebuilding takes, years, if not, more than that. And finally, pick up 1 or 2 transactions and demonstrate success. Unless we do that, it will not move forward. Pakistan's capacity and challenges are there, and we can do that. And I would strongly urge that do something for the community wherever economic zones are coming. Not only setting up a hospital or university, but actually, a full package of the way Pakistan's finance minister talked about Kamyab Pakistan, or something where youth can see being part of that development. If they own it, it will sustain. If people don't own it, it will struggle. Thank you very much. I tried to just make few points to move forward and make it sustainable. Thank you so very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Harun Sharif, for such a thorough and comprehensive presentation. I'll now move on to our 4th and final speaker. So to bring it to Professor Dr. Du Kang, expanding businesses vertically and horizontally rests on a viable and business-friendly environment. What are some of the expectations Chinese investors bring from home and expect in Pakistan for resource transfer and investment in the SEZs? I now call on Professor Dr. Du Kang to share his thoughts. Over to you, Professor.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Good afternoon. Assalamu alaikum. First, please allow me to say a light digression. We are very pleased to co-organize this important webinar with Islamabad Policy Research Institute on implementing the 2nd phase of China-Pakistan Economic Corridor, prospects and challenges. it is widely known that IPRI is a distinguished research institution and one of the most important think tanks in Pakistan. So for my talk, special economic zones are important parts of the second phase of China-Pakistan economic corridor. The Chinese experiences has shown that the seas have contributed significantly to the national GDP, employment, export, and attraction of foreign investment and new technologies, as well as adoption of modern management practices, among others. Obviously, successful construction and operation of SEZs is significant for implementing the second phase of CPEC. So it is my honor to attend such an important webinar as a panelist. Though my research mainly focuses on international relations and regional security in South Asia. Here I would like to talk a little about my several suggestions on creating conducive environment for attracting Chinese business community for SEs very generally. Firstly, the secure environment is the most important. The government of Pakistan has been giving increased importance to such security. Special protocols and coordination mechanisms to direct increased security for Chinese nationals and Chinese projects in Pakistan have become standard. To cast for the increased requirements, gearing up for CPEC as it progresses, Pakistan has developed special military forces, as well as a contingent of civil armed forces. However, there are still some security concerns of the Chinese business community in Pakistan, especially following a series of violent attacks. Security measures have to be further improved and stiffened for CEs and CPEC. Secondly, public opinion is also quite important. Local governments may manage to explain clearly the full extent of cooperation with Chinese companies in SEZs, particularly economic and social implications. Otherwise, much misunderstanding will arise, with some of this questioning, skeptical, or negative projection. They are motivated and even paid for by those opposed to CPEC. In some cases, hostile propaganda is on behalf of opposition political parties opposed to the government in power, and at times by well-meaning Pakistanis from environmentalists, liberal quarters, or businessmen apprehensive of becoming uncompetitive in Pakistan. Certainly, of course, I should mention first, some of suggestions may be wrong, and some of them could be right. Just for your I talked about it just for your reference. Certainly, SEZs do need an international business environment. To encourage Chinese quality companies and investors to invest, the SEZs may have in place various physical and non-physical incentives and preferential policies, including streamlined administrative process, sound infrastructure, sufficient close-by transport facilities, adequate and reliable supply of energy, inexpensive land and facility use, rapid customs clearance, the ability to repatriate profits and capital investment, reduced duties on imports, concessionary tax rates, export tax exemption, flexibility in hiring and firing workers, depreciation allowance, and a limited license to sell into the domestic market, among others. What are mentioned above, most coming from Chinese experience to attract foreign investment. Fourth, it's better to set up an institutional mechanism or a working group under the leading investment agency, no matter for Pakistan central government or local government, to facilitate and attract Chinese business community for SEZ. Fifthly, local government may adopt various preferential policies and measures to attract Chinese investment to SEZ in order to promote the rapid development of the local economy and productivity, and encourage Chinese companies to either acquire Pakistani companies or into the joint ventures, while easing investing conditions for joint venture and for large corporations in Pakistan by Chinese companies. Sixthly, SEZ may take measures to encourage first-time Chinese investors by giving out regular updates on the needs of investment areas and even undertake risk evaluation advice for them if necessary. Seventh, it may need to set up a joint grievances redressal arrangements in SEZ to deal with complaints of Chinese investors or local people, which should be given the authority to resolve issues. At last, I would emphasize that CPEC is a great and a bilateral project. Therefore, we need to work more in partnership, and that requires efforts, I think, on both sides. For Chinese companies, we need to understand the construction and the operation of SEZs will involve the vital interests in relevant regions, such as land, environmental protection, labor arrangements, etc. Before starting the project, the companies, whether they are Chinese companies or joint venture enterprises, all need to actively coordinate the relationship between the relevant local authorities and the interest groups. during the project construction, the local laws, regulations, and the traditional customs should be abided by. And the necessary social responsibilities should be taken by Chinese companies in those SEs. The involved companies or enterprises should pay attention to train local professional talents, provide employment opportunity, and assist in local social and economic developments so as to integrate the interests of all parties and share the benefits of the projects in SEs. I would like to stop here. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Professor Dr. Zhu Yukang. On this note, we'll now commence our question and answer session. And before I move, tabling any questions, I'll request Acting President Rashid Wali Janjua, if he may have any questions so that he could share with the panel. And then I can proceed with the question and answer session from my end and from IPRI's research departments and also. Thank you.
Thank you, Sama. I would like to give opportunity to audience. So anybody wants to ask any question, they should go first.
All right, so on that note, I'll go ahead and table a couple of questions. Anyone from the panel can go ahead, and especially those from Pakistan can answer and pitch in those questions. My two questions are mostly community-centric. First is basically about the power plants and their impact, especially the Sahiwal coal power plant. Mr. Harun Sharif, have you come across any study which sort of details or identifies any environmental or community based costs to the coal-based power plant that's being run in Sahiwal or in other places in Pakistan? And if so, what interventions would you suggest to help circumvent or overcome such, undesired consequences or outcome of such projects? Over to you, sir.
Thank you very much. Before I answer this question, I think on the policy for using coal as the basis for making electricity, there are two schools of thought in Pakistan. One school strongly opposes it, and that's what Pakistan committed to international community, that we will not do coal-based power in future. But the second school of thought says that the share of coal is so low in our overall energy mix as compared to number of developed countries. So we need to have a balanced approach because it's a cheaper way of making energy. In terms of the coal-based plant in Sahiwal, there are some assessments done by NGOs and some universities, which are working mostly from the lens of the climate impact of that project, not necessarily the economic impact of that project. And one of the main findings there, which I saw, was the location, because the plant is somehow very close to urban area in Sahiwal and right on the GT road. And that is where the questions were raised, that the location could have been much better to bring down the harmful impact of emissions. Other than that, I haven't seen any substantive assessment or criticism or support to this thing. But that's where I think, which I go back, that we need to work together on knowledge production, which is independent, which is helpful to both countries and people of both countries to understand how to move forward.
Thank you, Mr. Harun Sharif. But one more question, and perhaps Ambassador Nagana and you could also pitch into it. And this question is basically about coming up with community-focused interventions, and especially in areas like, for example, Balochistan, where CPEC is also aiming to, connect the country, especially with Gwadar and some of the other areas in Balochistan itself that are being catered with connectivity through CPEC-based projects. How do you see that some of those community-led interventions can be worked in to make this development itself more inclusive by focusing on these communities? Your thoughts on this?
My take is, again, very quick and on a lighter note. About 2 weeks back, I had given a comprehensive proposal to the SAPM on CPEC that how to scale up, social development around Gwadar and wider Balochistan. And Finance Minister was very excited, and I even gave mechanism how to finance it. But as I said, the political developments overtook, and both these gentlemen are not there anymore. So I'll have to wait for a while. But the way social development has happened in Pakistan, what we need to look at is we need a wholesale structure. Like some of us in Pakistan have seen the Poverty Alleviation Fund. So we need to create a funding structure and hand it over to an established institution which knows, like National Rural Sport Program, for instance, which has all the branch networks in Balochistan. And we suggested 3 basically key interventions. Number 1 was that scaling up of solar power panels to the people of all over Balochistan below a certain income level. So that is something which can give them a tangible outcome. China has very kindly donated some, but we can have very cheap lending available for people on sustainable basis to get into that direction. We also, obviously, without saying it goes, that we thought that the current Skills Development Center needs to connect with, the community organizations to reach out to people and target people and show them part of the whole deal. But more importantly, at the moment, is that small scale infrastructure in villages of Balochistan, like a small bridge or a clean water facility. And for that, we propose $250 million fund, which will be in China's portion would be 30 to 40%. Rest of the portion can come through the Pakistan banking sector, some government support, and we can reach out to other institutions, because it shouldn't be China alone. And the local industries which go there should also chip in, which are doing corporate social responsibility at the moment in the hub area and other area. So this is my answer, that you need to have a visible, clear funding and implementation mechanism for social development, rather than doing small bits of corporate social responsibility or donations or giving a hospital, which are good. But in terms of impact, it has to be a sustained effort for medium term.
Thank you so much, Mr. Harun Sharif. Ambassador Nagwana, if you could also pitch in your thoughts on this very same question, please.
I totally agree with Mr. Harun Sharif, because we need to have focused and sustained efforts are required in Balochistan. And like Mr. Harun Sharif said, that if we could have these standalone solar panels for the poorer segments of the community, and which is overwhelming majority of Balochistan, then I'd like to give an example of what they did in Bangladesh. For example, the government really provided a lot of subsidy and gave very, very cheap solar panels to all the households in the villages, which were produce sufficient energy for a fan, a light bulb, and some internet connectivity. And that really revolutionized the lives of the people in the villages. So something like that a sustained long-term program is required. And secondly, we should also look at what, because Balochistan is the largest province in terms of area and smallest in terms of population. And because of the very rugged and difficult terrain, it is very, very difficult to really reach out to those areas and to provide the kind of development that, for example, you can do in Punjab or Sindh. Or for that matter, even in the settled areas of KPK. So for that, keeping all those limitations in concern in sight, you will have to have programs for different areas. The coastal areas may need a different kind of engagement. The central areas may have a different kind of engagement, but it will have to be within some framework and sustainable. Like, for example, in Punjab, they have the health cards. But if you do the health cards in Balochistan, there are no hospitals. So where are they going to go, especially in the remote areas? So a lot of, I know personally, there are a lot of Chinese companies and other companies who are operating in Balochistan have done tremendously good work as far as education and water and health is concerned. But those are just small islands of success in a very large sea of Balochistan. So as Mr. Harun Sharif has suggested, that a long-term program which is financed and which is not only financed by Chinese, because the Chinese are the largest sort of investors there at the moment, but where the Balochistan government and the federal government is also a stakeholder, ask the banks to put in money and whatever, that is very, very necessary. And it's also necessary from a political point of view, because the Balochistan people have been deprived for so long and have been neglected for so long that, as our colleague Professor Du was saying, there is a security issue. There is a discontent among the population on various for various reasons, and unless you focus on the people of Balochistan and provide them the basic necessities that they need, which is clean water, which is the restoration of their carriage systems, which is the agricultural, for providing them water to do the agriculture and their orchards, provide them the basic health facilities and the ability to educate their children. So academic institutions, and of course, because so many projects are coming up and because there is this hope that it will become a very vibrant city and in the forefront of the exports, and it will lead the socio-economic development of Pakistan, it is very important to have this skill development for the people of Balochistan. There are some vocational training institutes that are sort of planned along the CPEC route. But I think for Balochistan, you should have what I call a job bank, which means that you have a series of good quality vocational training institutes which are linked with the vocational training institutes which are accredited and approved, so that when these Balochi children and youth are getting vocational training from here, it is recognized, and then they can be accommodated in the projects that are being taken in Balochistan, because this feeling that all the development that is happening, the other provinces are benefiting from it, is creating a lot of heartburn there. So I think it is very, very important to have these community based targeted intervention, but these are the areas which I really think need a lot of attention. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ambassador Ivana. I will now move on to Professor Gan Jigen and ask him about some of the, I would try and focus my question on a point that he raised during his discussion, is that when he said that Pakistan can certainly draw lessons from China's own experience, how it has went about dealing with its own SEZs and its own economic development, given how different the two systems are in both countries. How do you still think that the two countries can come about and have a framework or some arrangement to have some knowledge sharing? And what are some of the areas that you think that Pakistan can draw lessons from? Over to you, Professor Gap.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for your question. For China, I think that in the past 4 decades, we developed it so fast. And I think that one economist in Hong Kong, he said that in China, we can develop so fast. I think one important factor is that in China's developed different places, I think that there is a very huge competition between different counties. So he named it is the county economy. So for that means that every county try to invite their investment from abroad. So they have done lots of works on that. So that means that for China, I think that is very important for different places to have developed its own mode for SEZ like that. This is a successful experience. I think that Pakistan can learn from China. So this, when we come to Pakistan, we know in the first phase, Pakistan government and China also mentioned the 9 economic zone, so special SEZs. That I think is in different provinces. We know that in Pakistan, always there's so disputes between different provinces, and because of this kind of disputes, I think that for the federal government, it's very difficult to balance the interests of different provinces. So how to develop which investor in which SEZ more, or how to facilitate Chinese investment in which area? I think that there is some disputes, perhaps some conflicts between different places. I think that is also one lesson from China. I think that in China, we also know in that China, we have different places, and also we have imbalanced development in different area. We have opened our economy in the southeast China, and we have a very successful special economic zone, and also so very successful industry park there. And this is the first stage of Chinese development there. And later on, we find that in other places, especially in western and south, in western and northern area, it developed very lagged, very behind of the southern and eastern China. And nowadays, the central government realized this, and also we are now try to develop our northern and western area, and also we have some SEZ there. Like for example, Shenzhen government. Shenzhen is a very advanced city, developing city in China, and they are now cooperating with Xinjiang Kashi to develop one special economic zone, industrial zone there. And this work we have already done now. But perhaps when we look back to our development history, perhaps in 1990s and even in 1990s or early in this century, we can't do it at that time. But nowadays, it's not when we realize this, but not always. This is not so late. But for Pakistan, I think that this is also the issue. Now for the SEZ, I think in Karachi and Lahore, of course, they have their benefits to develop their SEZ to promote their economic development for Pakistan. And on one side, we needed to use the advantage in these two cities to develop your SEZ and to develop your industrialization. And at the same time, perhaps at the same time, for the later development area, perhaps they can find also opportunities from China to cooperate. Perhaps they can develop the cooperation with some area, some cities, not just focus on Shanghai, Shenzhen. Perhaps they can also go to Western China, for example, to Yunnan province, to Xinjiang, and some other provinces to find their partner to develop the developing area, later developing area. So that's also an important lesson, I think. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Professor. Now I will have two last questions since we're running short of time. I'll go straight to Professor Dr. Du Yu Kang, and I will request Professor Dr. Du Yu Kang to comment on the fact that Mr. Harun Sharif raised the point that it's important for Chinese companies to consider the fact that it's important for them to enter in some form of JVs with Pakistani firms to do business in Pakistan, given that there are certain concerns that are harbored by Pakistani businessmen. So to that end, we already have examples within China that they've had JVs with different Western entities, Western corporate firms, in order to enable technology transfer and or also to help Western companies help scale their businesses in China. Given that experience that China already has, how feasible and how open would China be to accommodate this very proposition from Pakistani businesses to enter in JVs when they consider moving their businesses from China to Pakistan? Your take on this, Professor Dr. Du Yu Kang? Sorry, Professor Du, I'm sorry, I fear that we can't hear you. Were you able to follow my question? Please go ahead, sir. Please go ahead.
Unmute.
Please repeat your question again, because I just disturbed by the outside noise.
All right, I'll go ahead and repeat my question.
Yes,
what I was saying was that
be a little focused with the question so that he understands.
Okay, so Professor Du, there was a point raised by Mr. Harun Sharif on the need to have JVs from the Chinese businesses when they move their businesses to Pakistan, as a concern was or has been flagged by Pakistani businesses that they would fall short of having any kind of competition with their Chinese competitors. So given that there's already an experience that the Chinese entities have had in China itself with Western corporations, do you think Chinese firms would be more open to the proposition to have JVs with Pakistani businesses while they relocate some part of their business to Pakistan in the special economic zones here?
Okay. Actually, nowadays, more and more Chinese companies would like to invest outside. Now, I mean, in other countries, and because the competition is in China, business competition in China is quite strong here now, and if as for the CPEC construction, and a lot of Chinese companies find a lot of opportunities there, and of course they have more and more interesting in to invest in SEZs in Pakistan, because those projects are supported by both governments. So I think during their investment, and they would like to find the suitable cooperators in Pakistan. Because most of the Chinese companies are not familiar with local laws or local customers or local the social customer and anything else, and most of them would like to find the partnership in Pakistan sides. So and they also know, even those they are invested in Pakistan as easy as lots of competitions between the Chinese companies are still there. And so I think they will bring more, relatively speaking, more advanced skills and open more technologies to there. Otherwise, there will be no competition there, and there will be no productivity there. So I think most of them would like to do that. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Professor. Mr. Harun Sharif, I'll ask you the last question. You raised the point and a recommendation for Pakistan to go forward with something similar to Dubai International Financial Center. During your stint as the Chairman Board of Investment, how close did Pakistan come to making that progress? And if not, what were some of the challenges? And what are some of those challenges that you would suggest overcoming for Pakistan to move in that direction? And the last question is, you suggested that Chinese stakeholders should get involved when it comes to undertaking structural reforms in Pakistan. You did give the proposition, but can you help explain why is it important for both Pakistan and China to undertake those discussions in the very first place? Thank you.
Thank you very much. Important points from my perspective. I think when we look at Pakistan's private sector, we do have the expertise to run, a corporate entity which can work as a corporate economic zone like the Dubai International Financial Center. We have world-class lawyers, we have financial sector people, we have engineers, but all in the private sector. So all you need to do is that give it a legal structure and maybe partnering with DIFC or Qatar or somebody else, because it's always good to gain. As a matter of fact, in DIFC, most of the DIFC is run by Pakistani professionals. So why I'm saying so is that will give comfort of this single window concept of corporate, management, which state is struggling to do so. So that is very doable. All we need to do is to look at the legality. The resistance will come very clearly from bureaucracy, because at this point in time, the culture of issuing NOCs and jealously protecting their power base will resist a structure because if you do that structure, a number of state institutions will become redundant. And as a matter of fact, a state which is struggling with fiscal pressures, it will be very good. So I think a proposal needs to be developed, and I will welcome, IPRI or any think tank or with Fudan University to work with me, and we can work out by engaging with DIFC and put it on table, because I'm thinking in very applied terms, not only talking about it. So that will, the issues raised by Professor Du about dispute resolutions and other, all will be actually handled within that building. So that is something which I recommend. The second part you mentioned about structural reforms. I started my presentation that Pakistan's key issue is macroeconomic fault lines. And that is where, our friendly countries like China or Saudi Arabia and Japan, they have been helping us with whenever we come under the financial distress. But we don't actually discuss the cause of that financial distress. And that is where certain structural changes are needed. For instance, how much deregulation we need to do. the role of state needs to be looked into. I mentioned the circular debt and state-owned enterprises. You pick one of those and start doing it, because unless and until Pakistan frees itself from structural imbalances, will be hostage to IMF again and again and again. I can tell you right now that IMF is already preparing its next program, because Pakistan needs cash injection, and with this political turmoil, the reserves are falling, and we need an IMF stamp to raise money again. If we need to break that, unless and until jointly China